Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to yet another edition of Hoops with Noops. Of course, I am Alex Noops Christensen, brought to you by FTN Bets. Be sure that you sign up for all the great stuff at FTN Bets, as well as FTN Fantasy and the FTN data. All that stuff nice and neat and bundled together. Tons of information, tools, and helpful content to make you a better fantasy player, and just smarter in general about sports. It really is great. We're always running specials. I'm sure there'll be one for the holiday. But if you're watching this at a different time, you can always use the code down there at the bottom of the ticker to get yourself a little discount. It really is fantastic. Again, welcome to Hoops for Noops. It is Friday, so we're in video today. And again, happy Friday. Happy almost Christmas. It's going to be a really fun weekend, I know, for a lot of people. I'm excited. It's one of my favorite holidays of the year because it is a basketball holiday. I know that the NFL has done their best to get as many games on Christmas as possible, but it's a great day for NBA basketball. The league does a really good job of making sure we have competitive games of some of the best teams in the league, matchups that matter that you're really excited to see. So I'm pumped for that. But what it means is we've got 2 days to sort of jam in a lot of basketball. Everybody has off on Sunday, and then Monday obviously is a big day. There's games then. So 6 games tonight. There was, I believe, 8 or 9 yesterday. There's a dozen or so tomorrow. So be careful. Look at your schedules for each team. Try to understand where they are. Are they on the road real quick and then going back home? It's a back-to-back for a lot of teams, a 3 and 4 for a lot of teams. There can be some weird spots. So be careful as you go through and handicap these games. And oftentimes it's best to try to bet as early as possible and get the best of the number. This time of the season, I would advocate for a little bit of patience, especially if it's a game with a less than clear injury report or a team that's known for kind of surprise resting players. So let's try to be careful and walk with caution, but we're going to wade into the morass anyway. There's a handful of games tonight, a couple I like and have bets on. The rest I'll tell you why when we get to Not for Noobs, but let's get started. Again, actually, you know what, before we do, before I give you away the free stuff you're here for, don't forget, subscribe to this channel. Tons of great content. Would love a like and a comment down below. Really appreciate it. All that stuff helps us, helps me, and helps you get better content. The more people watch, the better stuff that we can do. Now, on to the basketball. The first game up here, the Toronto Raptors at the Philadelphia 76ers. Yes, my Philadelphia 76ers. I am not really a fan of any team besides the red, white, and blue of the 76ers. It is something that really bothers me and, generally keeps me from betting their games. And this is either the first or just the second time I bet on a Sixers game this year. And I really like this spot for Philadelphia. They have been one of the best teams in the league the last few weeks. Yes, most of those games against some of the worst teams in the league, but winning those games by 25, 30, 35, 40. They even had a 50-point victory in there. And it really speaks to how good they are. Great teams punish bad teams. And that's what we've seen Philadelphia do. Got a nice win over the number 1 seed in the East right now, Minnesota Timberwolves, the other night. So the schedule's going to be tougher, but I'm still optimistic. Either way, this isn't a very good team you have in Toronto tonight. I think it's a smash spot for my Sixers. They're 8.5-point favorites. You saw, I'll talk about why I'm going to play the -9 in a second, but overall, I look at this game. It's a bad matchup for Toronto. They don't have anybody that can guard Tyrese Maxey. He's just too fast. They have a lot of good wing defenders, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes. Those guys do a great job, even Siakam, but they don't have the speed and agility to really stay in front of Maxey. Dennis Schroeder at one point in his career did, but just doesn't at this point. Maybe able to get a little physical with the young potential all-star and Tyrese Maxey, but I think he's going to have a really good night. And Joel Embiid should too. Jakob Poeltl is really the only guy that's going to play for Toronto tonight that's taller than 6'9", and he's just not good enough. He's got the size, but not the athleticism, not the know-how to slow down Embiid. Joel does really well against him if you go back through and look historically. And Toronto's in Philadelphia tonight. This is one of the weird schedule spots I was talking about. They've been at home for 4 games, have to come to Philadelphia tonight, and then go back to Toronto tomorrow to play Utah. That can be really jarring for a team. After about 3-4 games at home, you get really comfortable with your surroundings, comfortable with your sight lines. And, going to a different arena is even tougher because you've been so comfortable, and then to have to come right back to win a game you're supposed to against a Utah Jazz team that has been maybe a little better than people think. It's just everything adds up for this to be a tough matchup for Toronto and a tough spot. I had the Sixers as 13-point favorites here. So Again, you saw the generally available line was a spread of 8.5. You can find that at -110 just about everywhere. But if I have a chance, on that half point line to sell half a point to get to a whole number. So for example, here, instead of playing 8.5 at -110, I'd rather sell that half a point and play the -9 at +100 that you see there on the screen. Really what that means is that half point difference is very rare. And basically all we're doing is putting ourselves in a position where instead of winning, if the Sixers win by exactly 9, we're going to push and not lose our bet. That can be frustrating, but that happens very, very rarely. And it happens so rarely that the advantage that we get from betting a +100 versus a -110 is a big plus EV move. That's expected value. It means over the long term, we're going to have a better ROI. We're going to win more money. If anytime we have a 7.5, we sell to 8, an 8.5, we sell to 9, 9.5 sell to 10, especially if you can go from -110 to +100. Now, again, that -8.5, -110 is a perfectly good bet. This is just a better one. So get on to DraftKings, see if you can get that -9 +100. Again, seems like a smash spot for the Sixers. So let's go ahead and lay some points. Next up game here, the Dallas Mavericks visit the Houston Rockets. And this is an interesting game because we have one team tonight that we know really almost nothing about and one team that we know a lot about. And I'll start with the team that we don't know much about, the Dallas Mavericks. And you may have your brow furrowed a bit here, but got to look at the injury report. No Luka Doncic, no Kyrie Irving, no Josh Green, no Dante Exum, no Maxi Kleba, and no, there's one other name, damn it, I thought I could think of them all. Derek Lively, that's the name I forgot. No Derek Lively Jr. That is 4 of their 5 starters that are missing tonight. That is 2 of their first players off the bench they're missing tonight. Seth Curry is also questionable. He is another guy that plays huge minutes for Dallas. And that makes this Mavericks team kind of hard to handicap, frankly, because you start to look at the roster here. Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be the leader of the offense. He's been a bench player for years at this point. He is not ready to be the top scorer on an NBA team. It's just, you're asking too much from him. And then the second best scorer, you look through the list, I guess would be Grant Williams. And I think you can hear how confidently I said that. He has never been a great scorer. He's someone that can make shots when open, but is not a creator, not a distributor, not someone that generates a lot of offense. They're going to be playing guys tonight like Jaden Hardy. I'm not sure who Jaden Hardy is. I did look him up before this video, but as of this morning when I woke up, I did not know that Jaden Hardy was a second-round pick of the Dallas Mavericks in 2022. Has played a little bit, did score 15 and 19 points in games when they needed him earlier this year, but I think it just speaks to the lack of talent that's going to be on the floor for Dallas. And that can be hard to handicap because it's a lot of new players that we don't have a lot of data on in these situations and a lot of lineups of guys that have not played together. What I do know is the offense is going to struggle, and that's before you consider a Rockets team that we've seen be fantastic at home. They've been really good. Opponents, especially defensively, the Rockets have dominated and gotten teams to play down to their slow pace. They're the second slowest team in the league, and their opponents average just over 100 points per game in Houston. That is a staggeringly low number, and that includes, again, a 100-point average, I think, over about 11 games at home, and one team put up 134. So, the rest are stuck in the mid to high 90s. It's just incredible what Houston can do, again, in terms of dragging teams down into the muck, into this really slow, ugly style of basketball they like to play that allows the defense to do well. They really tighten up on these guys. It's uncomfortable for their opponents. So I look at this, and as much as I'm not really sure what to expect from this Mavericks lineup, I don't see how they score 105 points, let alone the 107.5 the market's expecting from them. Overall, I thought about playing the full game under. I do show some value there, a little value to the Houston Rockets, but they have struggled to cover some big spreads. And from a total perspective, they might be able to score 120 themselves tonight, which puts that total of 223 at risk. But 107.5, I have this at 105, and I could make a case it should be even lower than that. Again, just no scores on this Mavericks team. I think the only way we're sweating this is if Houston has a big lead in the fourth quarter and somehow lets Dallas start to run here, maybe some 3-point variance. But again, I'm really stretching. This feels like a great bet for us. Really like the Mavericks team total under 107.5. So those are the 2 games I have bet. Let me quickly touch on the other ones and kind of why I'm leaving them alone. The Denver Nuggets at the Brooklyn Nets. Nuggets are 4.5-point favorites in Brooklyn. The total's 230 points. everybody's healthy, but it's the first night of a back-to-back. And as I've said before and mentioned in all my written previews, I'm sure when I talk about the Nuggets, they approach back-to-backs differently than other teams. Generally, you'll see teams play hard the first night and be willing to sort of give up the second, whereas the Nuggets try to play a more lax, slower style of basketball in the first game. They rest their stars a little bit and play much better in the second half. Now, I still show some value on Denver and Brooklyn, and I still show some value on Denver against Brooklyn here. The Nets just really are going to struggle defensively tonight. They may be just able to score enough points themselves, to keep this game close, but I kind of struggle to see that. At the same time, though, as I mentioned, I just don't know what to expect from the Nuggets. They've had really up and down performances in the first night of back-to-back, so I'm going to let this one go. Again, do show a little value on the Nuggets in the under, and it's just a tough spot, so I'll let that go. And speaking of tough spots, the Atlanta Hawks visit the Miami Heat. The Heat are 1-point favorite. The total's at 238.5, which, if you know Heat totals, that is huge. But no Jimmy Butler. That means less defense, less scoring, and a faster-paced game. And you may be wondering, the Heat 1-point favorites without Jimmy Butler. Well, this Hawks team has really struggled, and it's been a surprise how important Jalen Johnson was early in the season. They're just 4-8 since Johnson has been knocked out. The defense has been much worse. The offense looks clunkier, and it just seems like they're asking too much of guys like DeAndre Hunter and Sadiq Bey to fill in for Johnson, who, again, was a really nice piece for them. And it's just hard to trust the team in Atlanta that really doesn't know how to win against a team in Miami that does know how to win. My projections have this game close. If you go back and look, they played once this year. Atlanta was a 7.5-point favorite at home. No Jimmy Butler, but Jalen Johnson was in. So, for -1 tonight, that's an 8.5-point adjustment. And I think really that's pretty close to accurate if you consider that Jalen Johnson's been worth probably about 2.5 points to this Atlanta team this year. And Miami's home court advantage is a big one. So probably about 6 points for the move from Atlanta to Miami in Miami's favor, another 2 or so points for Jalen Johnson. We get to what it looks to be like the right number. So no value here. I do tend to think Miami's going to win, but the Hawks always have the ability to have a kind of a good shooting performance and really run teams off the floor. So I could see both teams winning, lean Miami, but no value. The Phoenix Suns play the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are 3.5-point favorites. The total is 243.5. It's kind of a funky game where if you're going to bet Phoenix, I think you take Phoenix and put it together with the under. The Suns have played at a really slow pace. If this is a Phoenix-style game, as surprising as it sounds, there's not going to be as many points as we're expecting here with a total of almost 240. That said, it's in Sacramento. The Kings have been good at getting teams to run with them. The point totals are high, and if Sacramento wins, I think it's an over. That said, I really don't show much value. I tend to lean towards Phoenix and the under. My model actually likes the Kings in the under, but those two don't really jive. Again, a Kings win here is much more of an over game script. A Phoenix win here is much more of an under. So a little hard for me to figure this game out, although I do lean under and Sacramento somehow. So kind of going to have to pass there. And then the final game, I guess a little bit of a disappointment because Jordan Poole will be back in Golden State. The Wizards are 12-point underdogs with a total of 247. It's Poole's first return to Golden State since leaving for Washington. Draymond Green will not be there for the awkward moments and handshakes and all the wonderful stuff. I was excited for this game, but everything makes sense to me. The Warriors should be huge favorites here. Maybe Jordan Poole puts up a big performance simply because sometimes the ball has to go in when he's shooting it 20, 30 times a game. But this Washington team has been bad. I'm sure they can score enough points to stay within double digits here, but they might not. So this is a tough game. Again, I tend to think the Warriors win and win by a lot, but there's just not really any value in the market. So I'll leave those games alone. Again, those are the 4 that I am not betting, but the ones I did like, my Philadelphia 76ers. Again, the standard line's 8.5 -110. That's a perfectly good bet. -9 +100 is a better bet if you can get over to DraftKings and find that. I love selling that half point. That's just great value for us. And then the Dallas Mavericks, their team total under 107.5. Again, it's second and third stringers tonight for the Mavericks and not a lot of scoring talent. They're going to struggle in Houston where every team has. So those are the bets for me tonight. Of course, you can check those out as well in the written version of Hoops with Noops. Really appreciate all the support that you can give me there. And again, would love if you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you get every version of Hoops with Noops on video. Lots of other great shows. And put a comment down below. Let me know what we could be doing better or what other information you'd like to see in these spots. Again, appreciate watching. I'll be back next week. No video on Monday. I will put out a written preview for Christmas, but not going to have the time to get a video done and not really a great spot to shoot at my parents' house. So I hope you all have an excellent holiday. Eat a lot of food. Be excited no matter what is in that box. Make sure you got your reaction ready, even if you're not really excited about what's in there, because it's just all about the love. And the person who's giving the gift, I'm sure, is having as much fun as the person who gets it, regardless of what it is. So Merry Christmas to you all. I hope you have a great time. All the love in the world to you and your families. Excited for the beginning of next year. And I'll be back next Friday for another Hoops with Noops just before the New Year's Eve weekend. Best of luck to us until then.